Walk into any grocery store this week and look at what they're charging you for one small bunch of asparagus. $4, sometimes $5, for a thin handful of spears that traveled 2,000 miles in a cold truck to reach you. Picked days ago, and if I'm honest, half of it already going woody by the time it lands on your plate. Now here's the part the garden centers would rather you didn't sit and think about for too long. You could plant that same asparagus one time, one afternoon, and then harvest it every single spring for the next 20 years. Sometimes longer than that. My grandmother's asparagus bed outlived her. I'm going to come back to that near the end of this video, because it's the whole reason I garden the way I do now, and it might be the most useful thing I tell you all day. So stay with me for that one, because here's the quiet truth about most of what you're buying in the produce aisle. You are renting it. Every week you drive over, you pay again, you carry it home, and a few days later it's gone and you do the whole thing over. Rent, rent, rent. And a lot of it, more than you'd think, is food you could own instead. Plant it once. Let it come back on its own. Harvest it for years without spending another dime. That's what today is about. 9 things you can plant a single time and more or less stop buying at the store for good. Not fussy things. Not a second full-time job out in the yard. I picked every one of these because it comes back on its own. It doesn't need babying, and it's kind to a pair of hands and knees that have already done plenty of work over the years. If bending and hauling isn't what it used to be for you, don't worry. I kept that in mind for every single one. And I'll tell you now, most people get the very first plant on this list completely wrong. They put it in the wrong spot, they harvest it too early, and they give up right before the good years start. I'll show you how to not be one of them. We're going to count these down from 9, and we're going to end on the one that saves you the most money for the least work of anything in this entire video, the one my grandmother planted. So let's get into it. Number 9, bunching onions. The green onion you never have to buy again. Let me ask you something. How many times have you bought a little bundle of green onions, used 2 of them for one dinner, and then found the rest a week later, slimy and forgotten in the bottom drawer of the fridge? $1.50, maybe $2, straight into the bin. Again and again all year long. Bunching onions end that for good. These are not your regular bulb onions. You don't plant them, wait, dig one up, and start over. You plant a little clump once, and they simply keep going. You cut what you need right down near the base, and the plant pushes up fresh green shoots to replace it. Cut and come again. Some folks call the old-fashioned kind walking onions, because they lean over and root themselves a step away, and the next year you've got a whole new little patch you never planted. They walk across the bed on their own. Free onions, wandering around your garden. Here's the mistake nearly everyone makes. They harvest the poor thing bald. They get excited, they cut every last shoot right to the ground, and the plant has nothing left to work with. It sulks. Sometimes it dies. The trick is simple. Always leave a third of the clump standing. Take the outer shoots, leave the center, and walk away. Do that, and one small planting will hand you green onions for your soups, your eggs, your potatoes, for years, in nearly any weather. Mine push up green through the snow. In the dead of winter, when the store shelf is empty or the good ones cost a fortune, I'm still out there snipping. One clump, a couple of dollars saved every single week, and you never buy another slimy bag again. Number 8, horseradish, 1 root, and you're done for life. Go look at the price of a little jar of prepared horseradish sometime, a tiny glass jar, and they'll ask $5 or $6 for it. Most of what's inside is vinegar and filler anyway. And the fresh root, on the rare week you can even find it, they sell by the pound like it's something precious. It is one of the easiest things you will ever grow. I almost feel funny calling it gardening. You take one piece of root, you bury it, you cover it up, and then, here's the honest part. You mostly try to keep it from taking over the whole neighborhood. Horseradish is tough. It laughs at cold. It doesn't care about bad soil. It comes back bigger every year whether you fuss over it or not. For those of us who want food without a fight, that's exactly the kind of plant we want on our side. Now the warning, and this is a real one, so listen. Do not plant horseradish in the middle of a bed you care about. It spreads underground, and once it's in, it is in for good. Every little scrap of root left behind becomes a whole new plant. So give it a corner of its own. An old spot along the fence, a big pot sunk into the ground, somewhere off to the side where it can be as pushy as it likes and not bother anything. Put it in the right place once, and you will never buy horseradish again. You'll be giving it away to the neighbors. Dig a piece in the fall, grate a little fresh, and I promise you, the stuff in the jar will taste like a sad memory afterward. There's no comparison, none. Number 7, sorrel and the other greens the store simply won't sell you. This one is my little secret, and I want you to really hear it because it's not about saving $1. It's about eating something you flat out cannot buy at any price in almost any grocery store in the country. Sorrel is a leafy green with a bright, lemony, almost tangy bite to it. Wonderful in a soup, folded into eggs, chopped into a salad to wake it up. Cooks pay good money for it in nice restaurants. And you will drive right past it in every supermarket in town because it doesn't ship well and it wilts fast. so the store won't touch it. That's the only reason it's not on the shelf, not because it's hard to grow. Just the opposite. It's a perennial. You plant it once and it's one of the very first green things to wake up in your garden in late winter, back when everything else is still brown and sleeping and you're aching for something fresh. While your neighbors are paying supermarket prices for tired, trucked-in greens, you'll be stepping out the back door and cutting your own months earlier than seems possible. The mistake here isn't about growing it, it's about forgetting to use it. People plant sorrel, admire it, and then never quite work it into supper. So here's your simple rule. Keep it near the kitchen, right by the back step in a pot on the patio, wherever your hand falls when you walk outside. If it's close, you'll use it. If it's out at the far end of the yard, you won't. Grow it where your feet already go. Same story, by the way, for a few other quiet old greens like sea kale. Foods that were on every table 100 years ago and got shoved aside, not because they weren't good, but because they couldn't survive a shipping truck. Your backyard doesn't have that problem. Plant them once, and you're eating like it's a different, better century. Number 6, rhubarb, the pie plant that comes up before you do. Here's something most people don't know. There was a time a few hundred years back when rhubarb root was worth more than most of the spices coming into Europe. Traders carried it half the way around the world. It was medicine, and it was money. And now it grows like a happy weed in the corner of a cold backyard, and most folks walk right past it without a second look. Go price it at the store, when you can even find it, and that's only for a few short weeks in spring. They'll charge you $3, $4 a pound for a few red stalks, and half of it's limp by the time it reaches your kitchen. The rest of the year, it simply isn't there. You want rhubarb in July? Good luck to you. Now here's the part I love. Rhubarb is one of the very first things to wake up in the whole garden. When everything else is still brown and asleep, and you've had just about all the winter you can take, you'll walk outside one gray morning and there it is, this wrinkled red knuckle pushing up out of the cold ground, unrolling those big elephant ear leaves like it's showing off just for you. For those of us who've been through a long winter, and I mean the kind that gets down into your bones, that first sight of rhubarb is worth more than the pie ever will be. It tells you that you made it to the other side of something. Plant one crown, one time, and it will feed you for 10 years, 15. Longer than that if you treat it kindly. And treating it kindly is next to nothing. A shovel of compost in the spring, a drink of water in a dry spell, that is the whole job. The one mistake, and this is the important one, so hear me on it, that very first year, you leave the plant completely alone. Don't pull a single stalk. I know that's hard, you'll want to, don't. The plant is spending that whole first summer building the root underneath the ground, and if you rob it too early, you weaken it for good. Second year, take just a few. Third year on, help yourself, right through into early summer. And here's how you know when to stop each year. When the new stalks start coming up thin and stringy, like pencils instead of good thick celery, that's the plant telling you it's getting tired. So you stop. You let the leaves work for the rest of the season, and it pays you back double the next spring. One warning, quick and real. The stalks are what you eat. The big leaves are not. They'll make you sick, so they go straight on the compost pile, and that's the end of it. Say it once. Remember it. Move on. Stew a little down with a spoon of sugar for your morning oatmeal, or bake it into a pie the way your mother did, and you'll wonder why you ever paid $4 for that sad bundle at the store. You've got your own now, for the next 15 springs. Coming up every year before you've even found your boots. Number 5, garlic. Plant one clove, and you never buy seed again. Let me tell you what garlic is really about, because it might be the purest example of this whole idea on the entire list. You buy a head of garlic at the store. What did it run you? $1, probably more now. And where did it come from? A good share of the garlic sitting in American stores is shipped in from the other side of the world, months old, sometimes bleached white so it looks fresh under the lights, with a fair bit of the real flavor gone out of it by the time it reaches your pan. You buy it again next week, and the week after that. All year long, a little at a time, and it adds up to more than you'd ever guess. Here's the trick that ends it. You take one head of garlic, just the one. You break it into cloves, and in the fall, you push those cloves down into the dirt, pointy end up, a few inches deep. You cover them over, you walk away, and you let the snow come down on top of them. That's it. That is the whole labor, and it's about 10 minutes of it, standing right up, no digging, no folding your back into a knot. Come the next summer, every single clove you planted has turned itself into a whole new head. So you dig them up. And now here's where it becomes a thing that pays you forever. You eat most of them, of course you do. But the biggest, fattest, best-looking heads, those you don't eat. You set them aside. And come fall, you plant those cloves right back in the ground. Every year you keep the best of the crop to plant again, and every year that garlic gets a little more suited to your own yard, your own soil, your own weather. You will never buy seed garlic again. Not next year. Not in 10 years. It becomes a closed circle, and you are standing right in the middle of it. The one mistake nearly everybody makes, they plant garlic in the spring, like it's a tomato. Don't. Garlic wants to go into the ground in the fall, before the freeze. It needs that long, cold sleep under the snow to wake up and make a proper head. Plant it in spring, and you'll pull up a sad little marble instead of real garlic. Fall planting. Write it on the calendar right now. The Egyptians handed out garlic to the men building the pyramids, believed it kept them strong. Doctors have leaned on it for every ailment under the sun for a few thousand years running. And you can grow yourself a lifetime supply of it from one head off the shelf in a strip of dirt no bigger than a doormat. One clove in the ground. A pantry that never runs dry. Quick word before we keep going, because we're right about in the middle here, and I want to say the thing out loud. Somebody, somewhere, is going to call this cheap. Growing your own instead of buying it. My grandfather got called that his whole life. Tight, they said. Careful with a dollar. He grew what he could grow, and he bought what he couldn't, and not one thing more than that. And you know what? He was the only man on that whole road who got old without owing anybody a cent. They called it cheap. It wasn't cheap. It was a man who had run his numbers and knew to the penny what a dollar was actually worth. There is nothing lazy and nothing cheap about deciding to stop renting your food from a store that raises the price on you every single year. That is not being tight. That is being awake. So if anybody ever gives you that look, let them look. You'll be the one out back with a bowl full of raspberries you didn't pay a dime for. And speaking of that, if this is the kind of straight talk you came for, go on and subscribe before we get to the last few, because I've got a whole lot more of it coming. Now, Number four, raspberries, and every other berry the store robs you blind for. Walk over to the berries at the store and really look at what they're asking. A little plastic clamshell of raspberries, a small handful really, and they want $4 for it. 5, some weeks, and you get it home, and 2 days later half of it's gone soft and gray and fuzzy in the fridge and into the bin it goes. You're not even buying berries at that point. You are renting them for 48 hours and paying a small fortune for the privilege. There's a reason they cost that much, and it isn't the berry. It's that a fresh raspberry is one of the most delicate things in the whole grocery store. It has to be picked half-ripe, packed careful, kept cold, and rushed clear across the country before it falls to pieces. You're paying for the airplane and the refrigeration and every last one that's spoiled somewhere along the way. You're paying for all the trouble. Your backyard doesn't have that trouble. You plant a couple of raspberry canes one time, along a fence where they can lean, and within 2 or 3 years you don't have a plant anymore. You have a hedge. They send up brand new canes on their own, they root themselves wherever they touch down, they spread into a thicket that hands you berries by the bowlful every summer for years. All from 2 little sticks you almost felt foolish planting. And I'll tell you the part that matters most for these hands and these knees of ours. You pick raspberries standing straight up. There's no crawling around in the dirt, no kneeling, no hauling anything. You walk along the row with a bowl, you reach out, and the ripe ones practically fall off into your fingers. If bending down low is the thing that's been slowly stealing the garden away from you, this is a plant that hands it right back. The one thing to get right: know which kind you're planting. Some are raspberries fruit on last year's canes, so you prune them one way. The ever-bearing kinds fruit on this year's growth, so you can cut the whole patch to the ground each winter and start fresh. Which honestly, for a lot of us is the easier road to take. Ask which one you're buying, and don't just drop them in the middle of a nice bed, because they will march right across it. Give them their own strip along the edge and let them be as wild as they please. Here's the thing no clamshell will ever give you. A raspberry that is truly ripe, warm from the afternoon sun, eaten right there where you picked it, doesn't taste one bit like the cold sour thing from the store. It tastes like something you'd forgotten even existed. Plant the canes once. Eat like that every July for the rest of your life. Number 3, the herbs you've been paying $3 a handful for. This might be the most insulting aisle in the whole grocery store, and once you see it for what it is, you can't unsee it. You go in to buy a little fresh thyme for a soup, or some rosemary, or oregano, or sage, and they hand you a stiff plastic box with a few sad sprigs in it, most of which you'll never get around to using, and they charge you $3 for the privilege. You use 1 spoonful, the rest sits in the fridge and turns black and slimy inside of a week, and you throw the money right in the garbage along with it. And then next month you go and do the whole thing over again. If you added up 1 year of those little plastic boxes, you'd be genuinely angry about it. Here's the truth they'd rather you didn't sit with. Most of those herbs are perennials, which means you plant them one time, and they come back on their own every single year, for years and years, and they ask for next to nothing in return. Sage, thyme, oregano, chives, mint, as long as you keep it in a pot so it doesn't run off with the whole yard. Rosemary, in the warmer parts of the country, or in a pot you carry inside when the cold comes. You put these in the ground one time, and from then on, any night, a recipe calls for a little fresh something. You walk out the back door and you cut it. That's the whole transaction. No box, no money, no black slime in the drawer. And here's how you make sure you actually use them, because this is the real mistake people make. They plant their herbs way out at the far end of the garden, and then on a cold night, With the soup already on the stove, they are not about to walk all the way out there. So they don't. And the herbs just sit. So plant them by the door, in a pot on the step, in a strip right off the patio, wherever your feet already land when you step outside. If it's within arm's reach of the kitchen, you will use it every day of your life. If it's not, you won't. Grow it where you already stand. Most of these you can cut from standing right up, no bending at all. And the more you cut them, the better they grow. A chive plant you snip from all summer long comes back thicker the next year, not thinner. You're not using it up, you're keeping it happy. Plant a handful of these one time. Never buy another one of those little plastic coffins of dying herbs again. And your cooking, I promise you this, gets better the very day you start cutting it fresh. Number 2, blueberries. The bush that pays you more every year it's alive. Almost everything else on this list gives you about the same harvest, year in and year out. Blueberries are different, and it's the whole reason they sit this high on the list. A blueberry bush doesn't just keep producing, it produces more as it gets older. A bush at 15 years old will hand you far more fruit than that very same bush did at 5. It is the one plant here that quietly turns the passing of time into your friend instead of your enemy. Think for a second about what you pay for blueberries at the store. A little box, and it is never cheap, and it never has been. Now picture one bush out in your own yard, planted a single time, getting a little more generous every summer for 20 years, 30 even. You do that math one time and something clicks over in your head. This isn't really a plant anymore. It's more like something you put a little money into once and never have to feed again. There is exactly one thing you have to get right, and if you skip it, nothing else you do will save the plant. Blueberries need sour soil. Acidic is the proper word. Most backyard dirt just isn't sour enough for them, and a blueberry set in the wrong soil will only sit there, yellow and stunted and sulking, no matter how kindly you water it. So before you plant, you fix that. You mix in the bagged stuff made for acid-loving plants, or you work in a little sulfur, and you check it with one of those cheap little meters that costs less than a box of berries at the store. Get the soil right, and the bush handles the rest for decades. Get it wrong, and you'll stand there for years wondering why nothing is happening. One more thing worth knowing. Plant 2 different kinds, not just the one, and set them near each other. They help one another along, and 2 bushes side by side will give you noticeably more fruit and sweeter fruit than one bush standing there alone. It's a small thing that makes a real difference. And here is the part that has nothing to do with money at all. There is no better way in this whole world to get a grandchild to love where food actually comes from than to walk them out to a blueberry bush and let them pick their own. Right off the branch, warm from the sun, into their own little hand and straight into their mouth, blue fingers and all. They will remember that a great deal longer than any toy you could ever buy them. And the bush that gives them that morning will still be standing, still giving, long after they've grown up and gone. Number 1, asparagus, the one my grandmother planted. I told you at the very start of this video that I'd come back to her. Here she is. My grandmother put in an asparagus bed behind her house when she was a younger woman than I am now. She dug it deep, the old way, and she waited on it the way people waited on things back then, without much complaining about the waiting. And every spring after that, for as long as I can remember, that bed sent up its spears. She cut them, she cooked them, she fed them to all of us around her table. And here's the thing I want you to hold on to. That bed outlived her. She's been gone a long time now, and the last I knew, that asparagus was still coming up every April in that same corner for people who never once met her. She planted it a single time. It fed her family for the better part of a lifetime, and it never asked her for one thing back but a little patience up front. That's asparagus. You plant it one time, and it feeds you for 20 years, sometimes 25. Sometimes, like hers, it just keeps right on going after you're not there to cut it anymore. Now go and stand in front of the asparagus at the store sometime and really look at that price. $4.05 for a thin little bundle that rode a couple thousand miles in a cold truck and started going woody the same day they cut it. You will buy that bundle a dozen times a year and never once own the plant. Or you plant a row of crowns one single afternoon and cut your own every spring until you're an old hand at all of this. 2 things and then I'll let you go. Put it in the ground. First, buy crowns, not seed. Crowns are the 1-year-old roots. They look like a dried out gray spider and they'll save you 2 full years of waiting, worth every extra dollar they cost. Second, and this is the one that separates the folks who end up with a 20-year bed from the folks who quit. That first year, you do not cut a single spear, not one. You let them all grow up tall and ferny and foolish looking, because that is the plant building, the deep root that feeds you for the next 2 decades. Second year, take just a few for a week or 2, no more. Third year on, you cut every spring to your heart's content. I know 3 years sounds like forever, so let me tell you the truest thing in this whole video. Those 3 years are going to pass either way. They will pass whether you plant that bed or not. The only question worth asking is whether 3 springs from now, you're standing in front of a bed of your own asparagus, or standing in the store aisle one more time with that same thin bundle in your hand, paying $5 for it again. The waiting was never the price. The waiting happens no matter what you do. The bed is just what you've got to show for it on the other side. That right there is why I garden the way I do now. Not to save a few dollars, though it saves plenty of them. I do it because my grandmother handed me something that outlasted her. And there is nothing you can buy at any store, at any price, that does that for you. So there they are, 9 things you plant one time and more or less stop buying for good. Let me say plainly what nobody down at the garden center is ever going to say to you, because there's no money in it for them. Nearly everything you have ever been taught about a vegetable garden was written for annuals. Start your seeds in spring, baby them all summer long, tear it all out in the fall, and then do the whole exhausting thing over again next year. That one rule built a lot of businesses, and it does not apply to a single plant on this list. Not one of them. These come back on their own. You broke that rule the day you put the first one in the ground, and the truth is, the rule was never yours to begin with. Add it up sometime, the green onions you stopped buying, the herbs that stopped rotting away in your drawer, the berries you stopped paying $5 a handful for, the asparagus, the garlic, the rhubarb, year after year after year. It is not a few dollars. Over 10 years, for most families, it comes out to real money, the kind you actually notice, and you spend it one time, one single afternoon, on plants that have been quietly paying you back ever since. Here's how I'd start if I were standing in your boots today. Don't go trying to plant all 9 at once. Pick 3. Just 3 that your family actually eats. If you're not sure where to begin, start with asparagus, a couple of raspberry canes, and a pot of herbs by the door. Buy crowns and roots, not seeds, so you're not sitting through the slow years. Leave them be that first season, and let them start doing the thing they do, which is come back and spread and feed you while you sit up on the porch and watch it happen. Because that is the real secret of this whole thing. You do the work once, right at the beginning, and then the garden slowly takes the work off your hands. Year by year, it asks less of you, and it gives you more. That is backwards from how just about everything else in life seems to run, and I'll tell you, it is a genuinely good feeling to land on the right side of it for once. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me down in the comments which one of these you're going to put in the ground first, and what part of the country you're gardening in, because I read every last one of them. And if you know somebody who is still driving to the store every single week for food, they could be growing in a corner of their own yard. Send this along to them. It might just be the best few minutes you spend on their behalf all year. I'll leave you with this. Somewhere out ahead of you, there's a spring morning, a few years from now. You're walking out the back door with your coffee, and there's your own asparagus coming up out of the ground, or your rhubarb, or a bush hanging full of berries, all of it from something you planted one time and barely thought about since. That morning is already on its way to you. All you have to do is put the first one in the ground. Go on. Go and do it.